fear keeps you paralyzed and keeps you from even having the opportunity to see if it's even a possibility. Like, just say to yourself, maybe there's a possibility.
Welcome to the Sharing Passion and Purpose podcast, a weekly podcast providing career and creative inspiration to help you build a purpose-filled life. If you're interested in tapping into your creative potential and building on your biggest and best resource, yourself, please join me on this path. I'm your host, Nancy Moore, and I want you to know that I'm on this journey with you. So let's get started. Hi, everybody. So one of the things that is most interesting to me during these interviews is learning about people's backgrounds and the path that they took to get to where they are today. For Amy Scott, her path when she was younger was one of creating solutions and solving problems. So she really had an entrepreneurial mindset at a very young age. But because of her love for kids and her personality as an encourager, she ended up pursuing a degree in education when she went to college and became a teacher. And after a few years, she realized she was being drawn in a different direction and ended up moving into a position working for a pharmaceutical sales company. And it's a good thing she did, because that's when she first fell in love with event planning. From there, she founded a highly successful business in event planning that was franchised across numerous states. And now today, her entrepreneurial spirit has guided her into forming another business concept called Your Invited Lifestyle. Your Invited was inspired by a desire to provide an environment of community and creativity while exposing guests to local business owners in a unique way. As she puts it, my hope is that everyone who walks into the event will feel inspired, special, and personally invited. I was fortunate enough to attend the last Your Invited event featuring business owners who were sharing their knowledge in a workshop format. It provided an opportunity for guests to learn business tips that carry into their personal lives. And I do want to mention to you that if you don't know your personal passion, this workshop would be interesting for you to attend, because you can see what areas you might be interested in and learn and grow and pursue those different areas. You never know what you might like until you try it. And as a side note, I met Alicia Stanley from She Brews Coffee at this particular event. And if you have not heard that podcast with Alicia Stanley, it's podcast episode 52. Alicia was at this event promoting She Brews Coffee and handing out cups of coffee, and she and I connected, and I guess the rest is history because there's a podcast over it. Okay, now back to Amy. During our visit, Amy shares her perspective on growing a business concept into something viable and her words of wisdom for those who are fearful of taking the next step. I am excited today to welcome Amy Scott. Amy, thank you for being here. We have had so much fun visiting before I hit record, and I wish a million times I had been recording, because you guys, she has a lot of great stuff to share today. So thank you. Yes. So if you would let people know, I know about you, but if you would kind of share a little bit about yourself, okay, so people could kind of get to know you.
Okay. All right. Well, I am a mother of 3 children and a daughter that's at OU. We're house divided. A son that's at OSU.
Okay.
And then
I do have to say go Pokes,
right?
But yes.
I know. We're OSU graduates, but it's
yes.
fun. It's really fun. And then we have a daughter in high school at Jinx. I'm married. We have 2 golden doodle dogs.
Okay.
That's kind of new. I graduated from Oklahoma State with a degree in elementary education and taught for 4 years, and then took a different direction, which just kind of led me into event planning.
Okay, good. And we're going to get into that and talk about that.
Yeah, okay.
So one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to Amy today is because she has a background where she was part of a large franchise operation And she now is in another situation where she is growing a business. And so I want her to kind of share a little bit about her background as far as being in that enterprise and what she learned from that, and then what she's taking into her new adventure called You're Invited.
Yes,
so if you could kind of talk about, and I might be skipping around real quick.
That's okay.
But maybe we should start out by talking about your passion.
Okay.
And when you knew it was your passion.
Okay. I think by nature I'm an encourager.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about that one personality profile.
Yeah.
So even when I taught school, I loved encouraging my students. And so I can definitely feel that is something that God put on my heart to just, I want to encourage people. And I know not everybody has people around them that either are an entrepreneur or, maybe somebody that they don't have anybody to encourage them or whatever. I love that. So I think that's probably what I'm most passionate about. And then whatever path God takes me down, it comes out, and I love it. I love doing that. So You're Invited is kind of funny because I was trying to find my little catchphrase for it. And, I start writing all these words and trying to figure out, because I didn't know initially what it was going to be. And then when it came down, I was like, oh my gosh, there's a seat at the table for you. Like, I want everybody to feel like they're invited and encouraged, that they get to be a part of things too, that it's not for a select people. And I feel that same way about entrepreneurship. There aren't like these certain people that are set apart for that. If you have a dream, then it can be for you too. You just have to kind of know some steps to take so that you can start going after your dream. Yeah.
Okay, I love what you're saying. And you know the steps because you've been through it before.
Yes,
and are starting again on this journey.
Yeah, and it's scary. Yeah. And I remember, now doing this a second time, it's not even the second time around. And I've had other things that I've done, but these two are my big ones. Even for me, starting after that last experience and having building a franchise system, it's still scary. I still have doubted myself and wondered, what in the world am I doing? Where is this going? Because you don't have the path in front of you. It happens as you're taking steps of faith, right?
Yeah. Well, then let's talk about that, because when you say it's scary, I know that people get fearful on taking or making that step towards pursuing their dream, their big dream, their big hope that they have for their life. So what advice would you have for them on that?
I think you definitely have to find some people in your life that are encouragers. Even if they're just saying, start taking the steps, because a lot of times people will hide a dream in their heart. They're afraid to speak it out, because once it's out there, then you have to maybe move on it, right? But that is my word of encouragement for someone who is fearful, is the first thing is to write it down and see it on paper. And then find somebody you trust. And it doesn't have to necessarily be an entrepreneur, but just find somebody you trust and just speak it out loud to them and wait for their reaction. And even if it is like, what are you doing? Because it doesn't sound like you, like I've never known you to want to do something like this before, at least you get to start talking about it and it's out there. So now you take the next step and you find someone who's in business and you bounce some ideas off of them and say, let me know, like, is this realistic? Show me the pitfalls, because like anything in life, there are good things and bad things. So you don't ever want to go into anything in life, having children or having a dream. You don't ever, or marriage or whatever, you don't want to go into thinking everything's rosy and perfect, because businesses, it's wonderful, it's exciting, it's fun, but it's also hard. There are difficult things. And so, but don't let fear cripple you, because you can overcome all those things just like you have in other areas of your life. We all need somebody, and including me. I'm going through it right now where I'm, kind of, what is the next direction of what I'm doing? And being around other people who can say, hey, here's an idea. And so I write the idea down and I go pray about it, and either it starts moving forward or it doesn't. But fear keeps you paralyzed and keeps you from even having the opportunity to see if it's even a possibility. Like, just say to yourself, maybe there's a possibility. So what do I need to do? Write it down, talk to someone you trust that's not going to tell anybody else, and then go find an entrepreneur that you can bounce ideas off of. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, such good advice. So, from all of your experience that you have gone through, what would be one key takeaway that you learned that you would like to share?
I think the biggest thing for me, honestly, when it comes down to it, is listening to that still small voice, right? Your intuition. And you can listen to it in different ways. We talked about this before we started recording, but even as you're walking out, I just tried to walk something out very recently. And as I was walking it out, I saw the doors not opening. Mm-hmm. And that still small voice will say, do you see that this isn't working? Like, it's not easy. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you have to kind of keep moving forward. And so I did. I mean, I didn't just stop with, well, that was not easy, so no, I'm not going to do it. You keep moving forward a little bit, but if every time it feels like you're having to kind of force it, mm-hmm. And that there's along the way, the voice will continue to tell you, which I think is the Holy Spirit, but will continue to tell you, you know what, this isn't easy, is it? This isn't going easily. Not always, but sometimes that's maybe you're not supposed to do that, or maybe mm-hmm. you're supposed to turn a different direction. Sometimes it's not no, it's not down this road. Turn just a little bit and keep walking, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so listening to that voice, I think, is super important, and then not trying to force the door open that has slammed shut. That's the biggest one. Sometimes doors are hard to open, mm-hmm. but if it's slammed shut and it's just almost impossible, then start really trying to investigate why that is happening, because maybe mm-hmm. that means this isn't the path. Maybe it's just a little bit over to the right. It's mm-hmm. not no. Don't always think it's a no. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's just a redirect,
mm-hmm. I love everything you're saying.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so I might ask about your passion, mm-hmm. because I am asked quite often, mm-hmm. how do you know what your passion is? Mm-hmm. And my answer is it's important to discover your passion mm-hmm. and lean into your personality, mm-hmm. interest, let's see what else, values and strengths. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just wondering what you identify as, have I asked this?
Well, kind of, but I mean, I'm like, how can I add to, I think, encouraging people. Mm-hmm. I think it's not something I sit around and think I'm passionate about that, but I can tell mm-hmm. when I have the opportunity to talk to people about their business ideas, I get excited for them, mm-hmm. And then mm-hmm. I want to encourage them. I don't want them to be, I know we're going to all be discouraged at times, but I don't want them to be fearful and discouraged. I want them to let their mind open up to the mm-hmm. possibilities, right? Mm-hmm. So I love that. I think You're Invited has been perfect for me, because I love bringing people together. Mm-hmm. I love that. I love making people feel like they're included. Mm-hmm. I didn't plan that. I mean, that has happened as the name and the what this is actually going to be. While all of that was happening, I started seeing, wait a second, this is what I love. And I love creating experiences. Mm-hmm. And so the event part of it, I think, is that whole, I want to see women walk in the door and kind of be excited and feel like they're included. If I see somebody looking around like they don't know what to do, that's one of my biggest fears. My fear, because I don't want someone to feel like maybe I don't belong here, because this mm-hmm. isn't easy mm-hmm. and fun and all of that. So
I want you to expand on that concept of you're invited and everyone mm-hmm. has a seat at the table.
Okay.
And I know you've had your 2 events, mm-hmm. but if you'll just kind of talk about okay. what those 2 events included, what okay. people can kind of expect. Okay. But I know you're going to be doing some different things. So mm-hmm. if you could kind of talk about the concept.
When I was trying to figure out what the new event was going to be, because mm-hmm. my last business was also an event business, and I was like, what did I love, and what's new, what's a new concept? And the workshop concept was so big during mm-hmm. The phase in between for me, and I was like, wait a second, how could I turn that into an event and just do it in one day? And so that's what You're Invited is. I mean, regardless of what the theme is going to be, because I am going to do other things that are going to kind of seem outside of what I've currently been doing. And I've talked about your invited date night. I've talked about that at the event, so I can say that. But I'm also talking about doing your invited women in business, but it's going to follow a similar path. You know, there'll be some basically workshop type things going on at the event, and because I think people love to learn. I love to learn.
I do too.
I know, and it's something that I thought about as I was planning for this. Is I had a district manager when I was in pharmaceutical sales that made a comment to me that stuck with me forever, and I will never forget. He said, I always hire people that I think are better than me, right? And so when I was younger, when I was in my 20s, 30s for sure, I didn't want people to see my weaknesses, so I would try to hide them and do things that I wasn't good at, which never went well. And so as I got older and I thought about what Dale said to me, I thought, you know what, I'm better when I bring people in who are better than I am. I have a skill set. God has blessed me with a skill set, but all these other things I'm not great at. And so being able to bring all these women together and learn from each other, where maybe like I'm intimidated by this right here. The fact that you're doing this is so amazing to me because I don't think I could do it.
Yes, you
Seriously,
could.
Yes, I mean, all of it, but the technology alone it's just too much for me. Anyway,
she could do it.
I don't know, but I love that you can, right? And so we all have things to learn from each other. And so I think bringing women in business together and going, okay, I don't think I can do this, but you hear someone talk about it and maybe you get some more confidence, or you find a resource or something like that. I think I love that idea. That
I do too, and I'm really excited about it.
You.
Yes, I'm ready. Okay, so let me see. Maybe something you could share, because it's not all sunshine and roses on the business road, whether you pursue entrepreneurship, you've been through franchises, you've done a lot of things. Right. But I'm just wondering, maybe something that you have learned either the hard way or something important you've learned that you'd like to share with others.
Okay. I think one thing is, no matter what you do, you're working with other people. And I've learned so much, honestly, about myself in working with other people. It doesn't have to be a negative thing. Like, I learn how I react to certain things. And actually, I was at a women's lunch and learn, and they were talking about that. Like, learning, we all have different personality types. So I actually, and I can see it sometimes when it's happening, I rub people wrong. And I can tell, like, different personality types just don't, for whatever reason, they, I don't know why that happens. But learning to accommodate somebody else's personality in a conflict typically is super helpful. And I worked in the franchising business. I worked with a lot of women, and I learned a lot about myself. Like, why am I reacting the way that I'm reacting? But different personality types, we have to learn to communicate with each other. And sometimes for me, it is, or any of us, it is laying down our pride and learning how to communicate where they're coming from. And a lot of times that will shut down the barrier. That might be one of the biggest things that I have learned, honestly. And then just to not be fearful of change, that there's always opportunity for something else, and not to be fearful of that. Like, there can be exciting things in your next step. So,
I love that. That's a good focus to have too.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and this might go along with what I just asked you, but I have, with age comes wisdom, because we're close to the same age. So I have been thinking about that lately. Yeah. But what is something now at this age that you wished you would have known earlier? Maybe your teenage self.
Oh, okay.
Or some advice you could give to your younger self.
She gave me the questions ahead of time, so I did write some stuff
down.
Yeah, good. Okay, so a big one that I don't really think about that often, but I did as I was going through these questions, is don't believe the lies in your head. And so when I was a kid, I was not the best student. So I think if you talk to people I went to high school with, they'd be like, Amy Scott, or Amy Smith was my maiden name. She ran a business. I mean, I wasn't a great student. But you know what I did really, really well? I was a dreamer. And so the teacher would be in front of the classroom, starting the class, and then the bell would go off and class would be over. And I would have no idea what happened in between, right? But I was a big, big dreamer. And as I got older, I did better in school. And the dreaming part never went away. I mean, that has always been a part of who I am. And so I learned to cope, right? But if I had told my younger self had known what I was going to end up doing later in life, she would have talked herself out of it, right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because I believed that I just wasn't that smart. You know what I'm saying? I probably wouldn't be able to make that happen. But the truth was I was just distracted and I was dreaming a lot. And honestly, I am sometimes to a fault incredibly optimistic. I'm also a procrastinator. But yeah, so I believe I can do anything, and then I have to kind of catch up with myself. You know what I'm saying? So as a kid, I don't know if I would have seen myself as being able to, but over time God was good and had things happen in my life that made me start believing a little bit more and a little bit more. And so yeah, don't believe the lies you tell yourself, and honestly sometimes maybe lies you've heard from other people about you. If you have a dream in your heart, do the steps, write it down, talk to someone who loves you that you can trust, and then just keep taking the steps. Then go find someone who can really tell you what you may be walking into and make sure it's something you really want to do.
Do your homework.
Do your homework. Yeah.
Okay, so the life that you have right now,
yes.
Is it the life that you would have imagined for yourself? Do you feel
that
like...
was a good question. Yeah, it was something I thought about before this too. The only prerequisite that I had as an adult, like thinking about right out of college what I wanted to be a present mom. That was it. I wanted to be present for my children. And so I thought teaching school was great because they would be in school and then summers off, and I loved teaching, but I knew pretty quickly that I needed, I felt kind of claustrophobic. I needed to be able to be out and be creative, and I didn't know what I was going to do, but I just knew that. But so the path that I've gone down, all the things that I've done have allowed me to be a present mom. And I'm so, so, so grateful for that. What I didn't know is how much I was a dreamer, but I didn't realize what I was doing when I was younger. But as an adult, I don't think I could have ever done anything where I wasn't allowed to think outside the box a little bit. And for me, it just happened to be entrepreneurship, right? So other people, they're engineers or they're doing all these other things. But for me, I love that I can change, turn and change, and there's flexibility. If a new dream comes in, I can try to figure out where does that fit in and where does it fit in. So being available for my children, I'm so grateful for that, because I know that that's a hard one, and that's not always the case. And then just being able to dream. I love it.
Yeah.
Dream for a living.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so I also want to ask, or I guess just mention that when you said your major was education in college, entrepreneurship, I feel like has gained momentum.
Right.
I kind of feel in a way maybe it was looked down upon, or just in a different regard. Say 20, 30 years, there weren't
probably taking risks.
Yeah. And so now I feel like it's you're in a better place to do that, but
more opportunity.
Yeah, more opportunity. But I feel like too, you are in the major, or you were in the major that you were meant to, as far as encouraging and being a teacher and all of that.
Yes, yeah.
But okay, so I'm going to ask if that would have been around, the entrepreneurship program. Is that something that you would have been interested in at that time?
So I told you earlier, everybody in my family is an entrepreneur. My mom and dad owned a business I worked in, so I feel like I got the best teaching. They were the best teachers, but I don't know that I saw myself as an entrepreneur. I was doing things, definitely. I remember being in their business and coming up with, I saw a problem and I wanted to create a product, which I did not know what I was doing.
I think that's the definition of entrepreneurship.
Yes,
seeing a problem and filling that need.
Yes. And I was like, how do you do that? And I always had something like that, but I didn't see it for entrepreneurship. I just thought, I just always am dreaming, I'm like always trying to think of something. But I don't think so. I love children, and I knew I loved kids. I loved working with kids. And so that just felt like that's my path. And I remember making the decision to leave teaching and asking God, like, oh my gosh, why did you put the desire in my heart to work with children? And then feels like this door is closing. This is not where I'm supposed to be. And I remember thinking, in my head, you're going to have children one day, and they're going to have friends, and you're going to still get to love children. It's not, that's not going away, but that's not what you're going to do with your life. This is not what you're going to do with your life. So yeah, I don't even remember what the question was, but
well, if you would have not gone into teaching and maybe done entrepreneurship or something,
I don't think I would have.
That wasn't an option for us when we were in college,
And I mean, it's amazing that the things that that kids that are in college, young adults are learning now. And our daughter is an entrepreneur, and it's a whole different world, and getting to be around her friends that are starting businesses, and I get to talk to them. And I don't think when we were younger, or their age, not younger, but you know what I'm saying? I don't think that we were thinking like that. But social media has opened up a lot of opportunity too.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so my last question in wrapping up is, what are you passionate about right now?
Well, honestly, I feel like I'm passionate about trying to figure out what God is doing in my life. And I can see a theme. We talked about this a little bit, but I can see a theme coming together. And so right now I'm just focused on that. Like, what is this about? And I'm just trusting and walking out. Honestly, what I'm saying is write it down, talk to a friend that you trust, and then talk to other people who have done it and see if that's what you're supposed to do. So I think that's it. I love encouraging people in business. And I'm noticing that is a theme in my life for sure. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens next.
I'm excited to see what happens next, Amy. Well, that wraps it up. So thank you for being here.
Thank you,
I appreciate it.
You make it so easy.
This was fun. I appreciate that compliment. Okay, everybody, that's a wrap on this week's episode. I want to thank you for listening to the Sharing Passion and Purpose podcast. It means the world to me, and I'd love to connect with you. Please follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Sharing Passion and Purpose, and Twitter at Passion Sharing. Also, if you like this podcast, it would mean a lot to me for you to subscribe, rate, and review it. And as always, all my show notes will be available on my website, sharingpassionandpurpose.com.